All right, so one of the things about me, first, before we even start, is that I'm probably not your normal speaker. So if you've never sat in a session with me before, you'll see that I'm not normal. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. So let's have some fun with it either way. So for the next 75 minutes, I will sit here and talk to you like this. You will have to listen to me talk like this for 75 minutes because this is how tech sessions go, right? That's what we expect to hear, right? I told you I'm not normal, so we're gonna have fun with it. I'm gonna make you smile. You didn't think that you was gonna get to laugh and smile today, did you? So thank you for coming to my session. We're gonna talk about Copilot and Fabric, as per Microsoft Technologies and Fabric. This is subject to change probably tomorrow. Literally like 2 weeks ago, I had everything done, ready to go, and Microsoft changed a lot in Fabric, and I was like, for real, bro? All right. So before we get started, want to, like I said, I like to start with something fun. So let's go with something fun to start with.
Dr. Rubik, Mr. Hammond ate fish, and Randy said there are 5 more cases. They all had fish, too.
Yeah, the co-pilot had fish. What did the navigator have?
He had fish.
All right. Now we know what we're up against. Every passenger in this plane will have fish for dinner. We'll become violently ill in the next half hour.
Just how serious is it, Doctor?
Extremely serious. Starts with a slight fever, dryness of the throat. If the virus penetrates the red blood cells, the victim becomes dizzy. Because we experience an itching, a rash. From there, the poison there. The bad data goes to work on the central nervous system, causing severe muscle spasms, followed by the inevitable drooling. At this point, the entire cognitive system collapses, accompanied by uncontrollable flatulence, until finally the poor guy is reduced to a quivering wasted, a piece of jelly.
Copilot.
All right, and that's just simply how Copilot works, right? See, we're all good to go. We are done. So, one of the things, like I said, I am a cloud data and AI architect. I do data warehousing, data visualization, and I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express quite a few times, so I can fake a lot of stuff, right? So, and as you see here, I've been working with Microsoft tools since Sybase, SQL Server 4.2, and it's really just a ruse so I can fund my scuba diving. I'm a scuba diver. I just portray a data architect during the day, right? So I'm really Batman. My Bruce Wayne is more the mask, right? So, all right. So I'm trying not to make this information overload. And also, so one thing too, they told me that because it's being recorded, I got to stay here, but I break the rules. So I'll still try to stay in front for the camera, but I have to walk. I can't. I can't do this. This is hard. This hurts. I was that little kid that was always running around trying to see things, right? Like, oh, what you looking at? Let me. Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, there we go. Right. See, I told you I'm not normal, right? We're gonna have some fun, right? But it's information overload. I'm gonna still stay in front of the camera, just to like that. So there's a lot of information about Fabric and Copilot, and hopefully I'm gonna demystify a little bit for you and stuff too. So let me get a quick show of hands. Who is not using Fabric today? Oh, okay, quite a few people. Okay. One of the things too about it is that you'll see that there's definitely a lot of stuff here too, but I'm going to show you how it can help make your life easier, right? It's still not a full-blown easy button yet because it's still AI, right? And I'll show you too here. You'll get to see you still can't fully trust AI, right? Because one day they're going to become self-aware, and we've all seen Terminator. We know how it ends, right? So, but let's keep going. So. And we're going to talk about a little bit too. We're going to talk about Fabric and Copilot, a few limitations. I don't know if we're going to have time for demos, so I kind of took them out. I just didn't change my agenda slide. Me a couple. And a Q&A session, right? So first and foremost, let's do a little, uh-oh. That was supposed to have sound. Not sure why. It didn't have sound. But, oh, there we go. So we're going to go back in time just a little bit. Talk about the history of Copilot. Does anybody know what this logo is from? If you do, just blurt it out. Anybody know the logo? It is Office 95. So if we go way, way, way back to Office 95, Microsoft actually had built this feature that could determine how well you were versed in Office 95. So if you were looking for basic things like how to change font and stuff like that, it would determine that you were a beginner, and it would give you feedback. When you hit the help button, it would say, okay, this is a beginner person. We're going to give you feedback based on that. If you were looking for help in Excel for things like pivot tables and stuff like that way back in the day, it was like, okay, this is an intermediate to advanced user. I'm going to give them more advanced help. So wow, that's a long time ago. That's depressing. It's like 29 years ago. Anyway, so yesterday, 1995, we'll call it that. So Microsoft was even working on automatic helpers even back then. So that's way back to 1995. And they had the idea of, how can I provide end users a help tool to help them with their productivity in their day-to-day tasks. So then we go to SQL Server 2000, which was 25 years ago. Wow. Won't even say what I was doing 25 years ago. I was playing football, so we'll go with that. That's cool. So SQL Server 2000. SQL Server 2000 has something called the English Query Engine. You remember that? Yeah. And so it was actually really cool, but nobody knew really how to use it and how to take advantage of it. But the ideal was to be able to ask natural language questions and get answers about your data. That sound familiar? Right? So this is way back 25 years ago. Microsoft was like, I think people are going to want to know how to ask questions without having to write SQL. And it was kind of kludgy a little bit, and people didn't really know how to use it, so they literally removed it instead of upgrading it for 2005. It just went poof, right? And so, all the time looking back and everything too, we say, well, what is Clippy? No, or what is Copilot? It's Clippy, right? No, it's not really Clippy. But Microsoft, even way back then, had the idea like, hey, we got to figure out a way to make people more productive. Yeah, I get those words. More productive without them having to do more, right? How can we make an end user more productive? So at the end of the day, there's Copilots now for everything, right? So you have an analytic Copilot, which is in Fabric. You have Microsoft Copilot. You have a 365 Copilot. Then you have AI skills and stuff as well, right? And these are all based some form on a large language model. And with Microsoft's partnership with OpenAI, it's based somewhat on ChatGPT, right? But we're not going to talk about all those. We're going to talk just about Copilot and Fabric. So with that being said, there's multiple versions of Copilot in Fabric as well, right? We have data integration with the data factory. We have data engineering and data science. We have, let's see if I can remember what that was. Data warehouse? Yes, data warehouse, right? You would think that I looked at these slides, but I let ChatGPT generate the whole presentation for me. I'm just repeating it, right? Matter of fact, I'm not even really here. I'm like an AI implementation and stuff too, right? So how cool would that be? Give it a year or two. And then we have real-time analytics, and we also have business intelligence with Power BI. So there are individual copilots in each of these tools in Fabric, and they're meant to help you be more productive. And as we get through some of them, I'll show you some of the things too, because remember I told you I'm a cloud and cloud data and AI architect. I do mainly, like I said, data warehouses and visualization and stuff too. But with Copilot, I can do a lot of data engineering stuff in notebooks. Notebooks is not my thing. I don't think in Python. I actually think in Twizzlers and Kit Kats, Snickers, stuff like that, right? Yeah, but as you said, I think it's SQL. My background is a DBA, right? And so I can function in Python. Like I said, I stayed at a couple Holiday Inn Expresses, so I can fake it. But with Copilot, I can actually be pretty productive. So those of you who haven't switched to Fabric yet, you don't have to worry about like, oh, well, it's going to be all this notebook stuff and stuff too. No. Fabric is here with Copilot to help you. And at the very end, we'll talk about consumption and pricing too, because that was something that I was like, and then it just clicked, and I was like, oh, let me show them too, right? So we'll get to that. So, how are we doing? Oh, we got 10 minutes, okay. We're doing good on time. So first things first, you got to set up Copilot, and it's super hard. You go into your settings and you click Enabled. Like that's it, right? It's not really hard. I was trying to hype it up, but that's literally it. You just click Enabled. So once we have it set up, you decide, do you want to set it up for your entire organization, or do you want to set it up for specific security groups? And if you really want to have fun, put random people in security groups and set it up and be like it's turned on and they won't be able to use it and they'll wonder why. But you can really have fun with stuff like this. So this is something I told Rob he needs to add to his Revenge of SQL thing when he gets to Fabric, because you can really mess with people. But don't do that. And if you do, my name is Paul Turley, and I told you to do this. All right, so let's start with the data factory, right? And so let me go back up here on my high perch so I can be a data despot. I need a throne now, too. This feels good. As I look out on the crowd and talk and speak, there was one time. That's weird. Wrong session, right? Told you I'm not normal, right? So with the data factory, we have copilots for things like data flows Gen 2 and data pipelines. So data flow Gen 2, we can use it for things like transformation steps from existing queries. And one of the cool things with that, I'll show you how it looks and stuff too, is that you may have a data flow set up and you may say, oh, I want to change this and change that. Copilot's going to help with that, right? It can also provide a summary of the query, right? So let's say you have a developer who's developed a data flow and they have I got to change that. We don't want to use the bus example, right? We use the lottery example. They win the lottery and don't show up to work the next day, right? You're like, well, I don't know what this data flow is doing. Copilot can help you. Also, too, we can generate new queries that include sample data in reference to an existing query, and we'll see that in a second, too. Also, too, with pipelines, we can troubleshoot issues, and it takes the error into its explanation capability, so it can give you troubleshooting guidance. So let's look at it real quick with the transformation filter. So right here we have a data set of customers, and am I echoing? No? That's just me? Okay, cool. Because I can project pretty well without the microphone. So that comes from football days. I got to yell. So as we see here too, we have a customer table, and we have countries, right? So we see there's Mexico, UK, Sweden, Germany, France. I'm not going to read all of them, but you see there's a country column in this customer table. So you say, well, I don't really know the data flows too well, but I know I only want to see European customers, right? And there's multiple ways to do this. We could click the little arrow at the top and filter that way. We could write M code. There's tons of ways to do this. We can even go back into the source and write a SQL query with views and filter out what we want to, right? There's multiple ways to skin the cat. But we're talking about Copilot here. So I'm going to tell Copilot, hey, you know what? I only want to keep European customers. But look what it did. Where country equals Europe. What? Remember I told you, AI is still in its infancy, right? It's still trying to help me out. It's like, so that's M code up there. It wrote M code. It says, it's saying select all rows from navigation 1 where the text of country equals Europe. But there is no country named Europe. So I say, you know what, let me do this again, right? So I changed the query, instead of saying only keep European customers, to show only people living in Europe. Oh, funny thing about this too, this is actually a Microsoft Learn demo. So I was actually following the demo and I got wrong results. And I was like, I'm gonna run with that, I'm gonna use that, right? But I wanna show you because, and you'll see in a second that they even tell you the AI generated results should always be checked. And I'm gonna reinforce that. Don't trust AI generated results, not even just in Copilot, whether you're using any other AI engine, because you may end up with a resume altering experience, right? You'll think about that, right? So I changed it to show only people living in Europe. So I did that, and country equals Germany. And I have some German engineer friends that thinks this is funny because they're like, yeah, we are Europe. Stop, right? And so let's say that I didn't check my results and I went with that. And so now you have your customers and you're like, well, wait, we're in Sweden. What's up with us? What about us? And you're like, oh, did it give me the wrong information? Right? So I hit undo again and I say, show me customers that live in Europe. So look at the prompts. They're not that far off, right? Only keep European customers. Show only people living in Europe. Then I say, show me customers that live in Europe. And then it gives me all of that, right? So I finally got the right results, but I had to go through a lot to get those right results. Now, I've actually done this demo myself when it first came out, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and it gave me exactly what I wanted off the bat, right? So if you haven't used AI, if you haven't used ChatGPT, ask it the same question multiple times. It may give you a different answer. That's just the nature of large language models. That's why they tell you to always check your results. So as we see here, what it did though, is that so this is actually from the Microsoft Learn. I took this screenshot. So you see, they asked it to just only keep European customers. and it wrote the M code where it says, country equals Germany or France or Spain or Italy or the United Kingdom, right? And they went with it. But if you remember, our results set had people living in Switzerland and Portugal. So even Microsoft's result was wrong. I was like, yes, I found one. But I just want to show you though. So and it's one of those things where somebody didn't fully check and the result set was still wrong, right? So I'm going to always emphasize that, right? It's a helper. It's not a magic tool where you just wave your wand like Harry Potter and it just works, right? So they even tell you, AI generate content can have mistakes. Make sure it's accurate and appropriate before using. And they're always going to emphasize that, right? So I want to emphasize that for you too. It's a great tool, it's a really cool tool, but be careful that you don't just accept what it's giving you, right? And so always validate results. So there was a president that, man, I'm really showing my age because I actually remember him saying that. I was a kid, but I remember it. But he said, trust but verify. It was Ronald Reagan, right? So make that with your AI experience stuff as well. You can trust it, but always verify it because you don't want to end up with the wrong results. So also too, we can make new queries with it. So we could say create a new query with sample data that lists Microsoft OS versions and the year they were released. And as you see what it does, it creates a new query with all the Windows and the year it was released. So you can ask it just random questions and it can create queries and stuff for you too. And it's pulling this information from what it knows in its big massive trained model. So for the data factory, also too, we can ask it count the total number of employees by city, and that's a group by, right? So all these different things they can do, like I said, there's other ways to do it. You can do it different ways, but you can have Copilot help you if you're not familiar with it. And one of the things that I like about Copilot is that if you're new to Fabric, which many of you are, is open up Fabric, start a trial, and just play around. There's many free data sources. Microsoft has a ton. There's Kaggle that has an infinite number of large data models and stuff too. And just play with it. Ask it random questions. And that's a great way to learn about it. So some of the limitations, right? It can't perform transformations or explanations across multiple queries on a single input yet, right? They're getting there. But so what it's saying is that if, when I ask a question, I can't ask a follow-up question to that question in the data factory. Now you'll see in a second, some of the other parts of Fabric actually have that capability already built in. And so it's coming, it's just not there yet. It doesn't understand previous inputs, like I said before, right? And it can't undo changes after a user commits a change when authoring. It can't make layout changes to your queries in your session. And it may produce inaccurate results. I'm going to always emphasize that because I don't want you to get caught and get comfortable, because what can happen is that you can use it, it'll provide an answer, you're like, oh, that's great. It'll provide an answer, oh, that's great. It'll provide an answer, oh, that's great. And you get comfortable and you forget to verify, because it's that one time you forget to verify that you may get burned. So I'm always going to emphasize that. So in the back of your head, oh, I gotta check, I gotta verify, right? And it doesn't produce a message for skills that it doesn't support, which, duh, right? If it doesn't support it, it can't, right? Right? But that was actually in Microsoft Learn, so I was like, if they think it's important, I'm gonna relay that information, right? Just the messenger, as they say. And then we have data engineering and data science. Oh, we're doing good on time. So you can ask Copilot a question about lakehouse tables, Power BI data sets, Pandas, Spark data frames inside of notebooks. This is really cool because like I said before, I'm not a data scientist. I don't play one on TV. I don't fake like I'm one. That's just, like Python is not my native language. PySpark and every iteration of it that's just not my native language, right? So, but it can ask it natural language questions. You can also do code generation. You can do chart creation. You can filter data. You can apply transformations. You can do machine learning models. And so actually for me, as I was saying before, because I'm not a data scientist, I play around with data sets and I say, hey, and you'll see a question that we'll ask in here too. Give me some machine learning models. Which one should I use? Oh, okay, well, what is that about? What is such and such, right? And so you can actually use it to help you learn the tool as well. And that's actually really, really cool. So as we see here too, at the very top of every notebook, you have to run this cell here. And what it's doing is installing Copilot into that notebook. The thing about it is every time this notebook runs, you have to run this cell. So that can kind of get tedious. And it's actually gotten faster. When it first came out, it took something like 3 to 5 minutes. Now it actually runs in like 30 seconds. So that's actually really cool. So it's not that bad. But if you're going to use Copilot in your notebook, you need to have this every single time. Now, the cool thing about it too is that once your notebook is built, tested, you don't need this because you don't need Copilot actually if you're not asking your questions, right? But as you're working through it and asking your questions, you need Copilot. So you got to run this package first before you start it. So once I have that here, we see it once again, it lets you know mistakes are possible. Carefully review content created by AI before using it. And so, like I said, I want you to see, it's not just me telling you that. Microsoft's telling you, don't trust it innately. So it's not just the results and stuff too. It can generate mistaken code, right? And that's one of the things too you got to verify. So mistakes are possible. All right. So let's look even further here. So once we run that, it generates this long thing too. It tells you every package it installed, how it enabled it, blah, 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 boring stuff. But what it does that's cool though, it gives you a nice little list of commands, right? It tells you what the magic commands there and stuff too. Did I have? Oh, I didn't. Okay, I have it next. But it tells you, it gives you a long list of stuff too about what's possible, how it works and stuff like that too. And then we see some of the things that it generates. So we have the magic, we have % chat. This allows us to ask questions about our notebook or let the chat magics help understand, while we're authoring. So I use chat to say, where's my data? What do I have here? What's going on? And it can read data sets. So like I use it to read like a lake house. And I use a data set for NFL data that has data for literally every play from the first NFL game to last year. And I have a lot of fun with it. Show me 300-pound people who scored touchdowns, right? Like that's just fun to me. But I can ask stuff like that and it can infer things like that without even really knowing my data set. It doesn't have to train on it. It can infer your data set. And just before I forget, I'll tell you more about that too. Inferring your data set is not something that happens magically. You can't have a table that's called table A, column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, and it infer because it's not that smart yet. It would literally have to scan your data then. How can I put this? That's probably coming one day. Let's leave it there, right? But for now, you want to have that's a whole nother topic I could talk about. We can talk about that later if you want after this, but about how to set up your data set for AI to properly be able to use the data in its models. But you can ask it questions, right? And then two, you could say % code. Then it's going to generate code. It'll generate another cell block with the code to run whatever you want to do. So I could say, generate me a scatter plot to show players' height versus weight versus position or something like that, whatever you want to do, right? And it'll generate the code to do that. It won't run it for you. It'll generate the code so you can verify the code. Also, too, the difference between chat and code, because you can put the same things in it, too. So I can put chat and say, hey, would a scatter plot show such and such? And it would say, well, yeah, blah, 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 blah. You would want this for the x-axis, this for the y-axis. It'll help you with that. Versus the code, it's just going to literally give you a code block. It can give you that code block in the chat as well, but it's going to explain more that you can take and copy and put in your own code block. Next up, we have describe. So if I have a data frame that's already been loaded, df equals players, birthplace, not equal to the US, right? Something like that, right? That's my data frame. And I can say, explain this. And it actually does a pretty good job of explaining the data. So these are cool things too that you can have. So let's say you already have a notebook, or you don't have a notebook. Say you have a lake house that you were gifted, right? Which happens to a lot of us. Your company buys a company or something like that too, and you're just gifted a data set. I don't know what's in this data set, right? And so then with that, we can say, hey, describe this such and such, right? And it'll tell you, there's, this and this, this and that and stuff too. Oh, it gets louder when I do that. I won't do that, sorry. So self-awareness, right? My Madden awareness is like 83 if you play Madden. You'll get that joke. If not, just ignore it, it's fine. And then we have add comments. This allows you to add comments to a cell, right? And so you can actually ask it to suggest comments as well, not just, hey, add this comment, because you could just do that, right? You could say, if I'm gonna add this comment, I can put that comment in the cell. But you can ask it to add comments to your notebook cell as well. And finally, we can have it fix errors. Now, this fix errors one is interesting because you say, oh, well, shoot, if I have an error, I can just run that and let it fix it. Yes and no, right? Because remember I said it's not magic, even though those are actually literally called magics. That's what's really funny. Those are called magics. It's not magic. So it can't solve everything, but it gives you a great head start. Yes? It is actually 2%. That's a good question. So it's percent. And when I was actually writing it, I didn't have a space between the bullet point, and I was like, ooh, that's gonna really look bad. But it actually is percent chat, percent code, percent add comment, percent fix errors, and such. So, oh, that's a great catch. I did that on purpose to see who was paying attention, right? But no, she does need a prize. Paul is going to give you $100 after this session. Thank you, Paul. No, on a serious note, I'm gonna send you a $20 gift card. See me after this. $20 Amazon gift card. No, for real, seriously. She wins that. So see, because she was paying attention, right? What could change in life if we all paid attention? That's a whole nother topic. But we're going to keep going. And then translate. This is actually really cool. So a lot of times too, we may inherit a notebook that may be written in another language, right? And we know there's a lot of different versions of Spark or Python. We have PySpark, we have Spark SQL, we have, just, right? So if you have something else that's written in a different language, you can use translate, and it'll translate the code into whatever language you want to translate it into. So that's actually very helpful too if you're trying to learn another language. I told you before, I'm still trying to learn basic Python. And I have a friend that's a data engineer that's actually watching the stream, and he's probably laughing right now, like, yeah, you'll never get that. But that's okay, Peter. I'm gonna catch you one day. So, but yeah, translate, right? So, sorry, I digress. I got distracted, right, by myself, which is even funnier when you think about it. It's like an inception of distraction. Sorry, here I go again. But let's look at some of the things that it can do. Natural language chat. So this is something that I run on almost every data set, right? I say, what are machine learning models that may fit this data set? Because I'm not a data engineer. I don't know. What's a machine learning model anyway, right? I saw it one time on a stream and stuff too. And it says, since the data set's not provided, we can't determine the specific machine learning models that may fit that data set. Oh, whoops. But here's some common ones, right? And so it gives you common things like that too. So it's still smart enough to know that, hey, it couldn't provide that, but it can give you X, Y, Z. Now, if I had one, it would filter this down and say, you know what, you can do a linear regression on this, hierarchical clustering, right? You can do such and such, it can get detailed with that. But I wanted to show you this too because there was no data set there. But before you even get to that, attention, AI code can include errors. They're always going to remind you, right? You got to always be mindful of that. Here's another one. How many players are in this data set? To determine the number of players in the data set, we can query NFL data game participation table from the lakehouse named NFL data. The schema of the tables include a player ID column called, which uniquely identifies each player by counting the distinct values in the player ID column, which is true, right? So this is literally the NFL's data set. It has every play, every player, every penalty, every referee, every team since the inception of the NFL. And it gave me this answer in 12 seconds. So it's fast. It's really fast. It's actually really cool. So I was trying to just a simple question that should stump it. How did it know that in 12 seconds? Copilot's actually pretty cool. It can do some really cool stuff. And then what it does is here's a code snippet to calculate the number of players in the data set. So remember the difference. This is a chat. So this is me asking a question. So it's going to explain more. If I said code, how many players are in this data set, it would have created a cell with the code to just run that. But I'm not a data scientist. I need to know more. And I don't trust you, so I'm going to see what you think about it. And so this little paragraph here was like, oh, wow, you actually do know about my data set. All right, Copilot, yeah, there we go. So, and as you see here too, what it's doing, it's right. It's a query to count the number of unique players in data set, gives you a little comment, right? And player count data frame equals evaluate this, right, over that and stuff too, right? And so another one, I ran it with code, right? So here we have chat. So we have chat, we see how it explained it. So I take the same question and I run it with code. How many players are in this data set? You see now it gives me a data frame, an actual cell with the query to run. But it also reminds me that AI can make mistakes, right? So always remind me of that. But now all I got to do is run this cell to get my answer, right? It didn't explain it. That's what chat did. Code gave me the code. As I get more comfortable, I will move from chat to code. I don't think I'm ever going to get comfortable in Python, so I'm always going to stay in chat. I want to know, right? Or I'll just read more white papers because that's better than reading like Stephen King novels. Not really, but that's what I spend my time doing because I'm a nerd. And so, I should bring Fabric up at my next Dungeons & Dragons session. DM, ask Copilot how many people are in this room. Right? If you don't play Dungeons & Dragons, that's not funny. But if you do, you get the joke, right? Never ask how many people in the room. Never ask how big the room is. All right. And so once again, remembering that AI can make mistakes, right? You sound like a broken record. I want you to remember that AI can make mistakes. Don't get comfortable because you can get real comfortable real quick with these answers and just keep going. And I don't want you to get burned on that, right? I want you to be comfortable using Copilot, comfortable with AI, but understand the limitations of Copilot and the limitations of AI, right? So that you get the benefit of both, right? Because what we don't want to do is create an AI that can do everything for us and then we forget how to do things ourselves, right? So an example would be like Teslas with their self-driving. I trust my car, but I don't trust my car. I'm not going to sleep. I am not going to stop paying attention. But you know what? You want to do the heavy lifting in traffic? That's cool. I'm still going to watch you with a sharp eye. Same thing with Copilot. You can trust it, but to an extent. You don't want to put your life on the line, that's the Tesla example, literally putting your life on the line, right? Another one, how can I create a data frame with players who are over 30 pounds called linemen? So I'm asking chat. I didn't ask for code. I asked for chat. So what it gives me, it says, hey, to create a data frame with players over 300 pounds called linemen, you can filter the existing data frame based on the weight column. Here's the code to achieve this. So it gives me the code to achieve that, right? So I don't think I put the code in here, but it's the same type of thing. If I'd have done code, it would have just generated the code cell to run. But I wanted an explanation because I want to see, does it really understand my data set, right? Here's another one. Recommend visualizations for player data. And it gives me this, right? So for player data, several visualizations can provide valuable insights. Player distribution by position. A pie chart, oh my God. Paul had recommended a pie chart. We got to stop right there, right? Copilot, you failed, right? That's a whole nother joke if you're a visualization person about pie charts, right? A pie chart showing a distribution of players across different positions can help visualize the composition of a player roster. Just the top of my head, that's too many series for a pie chart. Every position, just like there's 11 on offense, 11 on defense, you'd have 22 series in a pie chart. I'm going to wait, but just don't use a pie chart. You can ask me later why, but just don't do that. But it recommended it, right? So one of the things about recommending it too, so think about that. Remember I said it doesn't really know it hasn't trained on my data set. It took it 12 seconds to be able to recommend all of these different things on my data set, and they're actually valid, except for the pie chart. That's not valid, right? Ignore the pie chart, don't do the pie chart, just walk away from it, right? If you're a pie chart fan, sorry. Player age distribution. A histogram showing the age distribution of players can help reveal the age demographics of the team. Player performance comparison, a bar chart. So all these visualizations that it recommends and why are actually valid, except for the pie chart. They're actually very valid about what type of visualizations I want for my experience. They're very, very relevant and pertinent. And so I'm still blown away, literally, I'm still blown away about how relevant this really is. Like, how did it know this about my data? But it does that. It knows about your data in advance. Then, player experience level, a bar chart showing number of years of experience for each player, right? So let's put this into a real world scenario. I get data, right? My company bought another company, and now I have this new data set. I don't know anything about this data set. I can ask it questions. I can say, hey, tell me about my data set, recommend visualizations for my data set, right? And so it can help you with that. So these are things that Fabric can do, Copilot in Fabric can do, right? So all of you who have not used it yet, like I said, I recommend create a trial, get a sample data set, and just play around with this. This is actually some really, really cool stuff. And then two, we have scatterplot. Like, I'm a huge fan of scatterplots. That's why I actually highlighted it there. But so I take that one there too, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. You want to do a scatterplot versus height and weight? Let's take that out. So I literally said create a scatterplot. I took what it literally said, and I used code this time, right? So you see me switching between code and chat. I used code, say create a scatterplot showing player height on one axis and weight on the other, and weight on the other can visualize. So I literally took it out from what it said. So it's not full-blown human, good language, but just copied and pasted. So what it said was, that, right? And so import matplot library, which is the visualization library for Python. It brings all that in, and it creates this, and it says, hey, that's that. So now remember, too, when it's doing this, it's not going to run it for you. So you don't have to worry about using Copilot to do all these things and it running it and you get in trouble. It creates the cell, you verify it, and you run it, right? So next up, let's look at some of the limitations. So Copilot features in the data engineering and data science experience are currently only scoped to notebooks. And if you're familiar with the data engineering and data science pieces of Fabric, that makes sense. That's how you interact with the data engineering and data science is through notebooks. So that's why it's limited to notebooks. Also, too, people who are able to meaningfully evaluate the content's accuracy and appropriateness should review the outputs. That's another way of saying verify the results, right? Because, so for me, remember I said before, I'm not a data scientist. I can look at something and say, okay, that looks right. I think that's right, and then run it. But do I know the end result data, what it should be, right? Like, so I would hope for football. I played it for a really long time. I would hope I know that. But everybody's data set is not football. What if your data set is medical, right? Are you confident with the ICD-10 codes to know that that's the right output for that diagnosis code? Are you confident that this has the right empanelment for that user? I'm gonna stop going into medical stuff. I do a lot of medical data warehousing, and it's, you know, I like dream and nightmare. I have nightmares of Epic, not dreams. I have nightmares of Epic. He's laughing. He's like, yeah, you got you there, right? But so make sure that even when you do all this and stuff too, you have somebody verify it, right? And that should be like a general rule, right? You still want to have people verify it to trust it, right? So now we get to the Fabric data warehouse. So once again, natural language to SQL. Copilot can generate SQL queries. Code completion, right? We can enhance our AI with code completion. So we've all used SQL Server Management Studio, right? SSMS, majority of us, right? And nowadays we live for IntelliSense, right? We get there, select from, and boom, we have the schema, and then it generates the list of stuff too, right? And that's helpful. Imagine if it could generate the rest of your query when you start doing inner joins and stuff like that. Imagine being able to put a comment saying, you know what, I'm going to write a query that's going to join, we're going to go back to medical, sorry. It's going to write a query that has patient data, encounter data, diagnosis, physician, and facility, right? And you start typing it out, select star from the patient table, inner join, encounter on patient ID equals patient ID, enter, and then it fills in the rest because you've given it the comment of what you're doing. Copilot can do that. I don't know how it works. It's the magician behind the scene, right? But it does. Also, too, we have quick actions. This is actually really cool, too. Quickly fix and explain SQL queries with readily available actions. And we'll see that, too, in a second. And intelligent insights. So you can get smart suggestions and insights based on your warehouse schema and metadata. So what Copilot's really doing, as we see here, it's not reading your data. It's reading your schema and some of your metadata. So one of the things that it's doing, too, is like, if you use Power BI and you've seen in the Power Query, you've seen like the analytics, I forgot what it's called, that shows the uniqueness of a data and stuff like that, the number of instances. It's doing that behind the scenes. It's not reading your data, it's reading the metadata. So if it has a column that has 10 records in it, and all 10 of the values in that one column are unique, it's going to assume that's probably a unique identifier, right? It's a good assumption. It's doing that. So it can actually do it really, really fast. I had a customer that had a 12 terabyte data warehouse, and we were just running random stuff just to see how fast it was. And it was still doing insights and stuff on things in less than 60 seconds. So it's really fast. And it's only getting faster. So as they make more performance improvements, it's just going to get faster. Yes?
So even in the notebook, that data that you've imported into a data frame, the Copilot can't read that underlying data.
It can definitely read the data in the data frame. Yeah.
The data frame it can, but in the data warehouse, it can't read the underlying data.
You got to put it in a data frame for it to read the data itself. It doesn't, I'm sure it could. And I've never actually had it read the data itself unless it was in a data frame. So I've always put it, so we can talk about that after if you want to go more deep into that, because now that makes me think, so we can talk deeper about it, but by default it's reading the data frame. It can read, because data frame is actually, local to the notebook, whereas the data set won't be local to that. So it doesn't read that until you tell it to. But as far as the data frame is local to that notebook because it's part of the session. And so if you're not a notebook or engineer person, so a data frame is like a temp table in a database, where unless it's a global temp table, I'm not in your session, I can't see that temp table. Same type of concept, right? So let's look at some of these examples here. So the chat pane, right? You can use the chat pane just like the other places stuff too, to ask natural language stuff, and we can do code completion, right? Explain and fix. So explain gives a natural language explanation of your SQL query, and fix can fix errors, right? It's not a be-all, end-all fix everything, but it can fix the basics based off of context clues and stuff too. You may use the wrong SQL join. You may use a inner join when you need a left outer join or a cross join, things like that. So let's look at some of the examples here. This is actually really cool. So we have code completion. So we start typing out, we have our select list from, we say inner join product category on product ID equals product category ID, inner join. It's like, oh, well, do you want to inner join the product model? Oh, yeah, well, thank you. And I can accept that. Also, too, what happens when you have multiple options, right? So here we see select city, state, country from trip, and then it says, well, hey, do you want to join demo geography on this and this? But what we see here, we see this 1 out of 2. If there's multiple possibilities that it has identified based off of the join key in relationships, because it can read your metadata, it can suggest other options and stuff as well. So you may have multiple options to join and stuff as well. So this can help speed up your development in the data warehouse. Also, this is what I was saying before too about code completion. So right here, we say, we write a simple comment, dash, our comment, just like any transact SQL language for SQL database. We say, list the average temperature of each city. And it's like, oh, I got you. It wrote the whole query for that. Now, once again, that query may not be completely correct. You should check it before you trust it. But I got a full query from just writing a comment. And when you get into databases and source systems that have hundreds of tables, this can be a lifesaver, right? Even if you have a star schema with 8 tables, it's still fine because it can create. I like doing less work. So my friend Patrick LeBlanc, I'm sure you heard of Patrick LeBlanc from Guy in the Cube. He talks about being lazy and working smarter, right? I was like, I like that. I'm going to go with that, right? But that's what it is. It's not so much being lazy. It's being smarter with your time. Yes?
Your prior example of joins, you mentioned keys.
Mm-hmm.
Having them established. I have several tables where addresses, have a physical and a mailing address. So my zip codes, I'll have physical zip, mailing zip, and they reference one zip table. There's not the developers, for whatever reason, didn't want to put a key on it.
Something about developers and database tables, but we won't talk about that.
Can Copilot handle that situation? Will it make that identify that actual relationship?
I think it would. I think it would. I was just thinking about it because what it would do, it would run a analysis on the distincts and over here and stuff too. So, but it may be down the road type of thing where it wouldn't give you the first. Like, so when I showed the one here where it gives you, that may be 3 or 4 or 5, something like that too, because it's like, okay, well maybe this, maybe that, right? And that's a quasi type of key. I don't even like to use that word because I'm just, that there's so many better ways to do that in the database, in the data warehouse table. But developers, we love them. We wouldn't have work without them. If you're a developer, I'm just playing, love you, right? Love you. Not talking about developers, right? Love my developers, right? But there's a lot of jokes. I'm sure you joke, you have jokes about database people and stuff as well, especially DBAs, right? We like to lock the world down. Yes?
So when you put the comment in the warehouse, it's similar to that code command.
Yes. Yeah.
It just spits out the code.
Right.
Is there something similar to the chat where it gives you additional comments?
That's a great question. That's explained. We're going to talk about that next. He cheated, or is he a plant? I think it's a black flag operation to put somebody in the crowd to ask pertinent questions. But you'll never know, right? Right? All right. So it's a great question. If anybody hear what he said, he was asking, is this like this query here, is this like the chat when we were in the data engineering and science experience? And was there something, that can fully explain, is this like the code, percent code from the data science and data experience? And is there something equivalent to chat? So we go to explain. So explain does this. So now you get your explanation of that query. It says, this query retrieves customer information along with their address details. The results include blah, 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 right? And then look down here too, there's still more comments. The results are ordered by the modified date. And you say, well, that's easy and stuff as well. Yeah, but this is a start and stuff too. And depending on how complex your query is, it can get more complex with it. One of the great things that I love about this is that we're seeing it be able to do more inference of code and stuff too, so you get better comments, because we know that all of our code is greatly commented, and we know exactly what it is, right? So having Copilot just do this through your store procedures, your views, your things like that too, just comment your code, right? You get legacy code that you're inheriting. Let Copilot run quick explain on it, and let it comment and stuff out and stuff too. Obviously, you're going to always need business logic comments, because Copilot never know what an IRR is in terms of an investment for a mutual fund. It's not going to know that IRR example, but it may realize that, hey, this is a investment, blah, 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 such and such, but it won't know the details and the business reasons for that. And did I say that too fast? Because I tend to talk fast sometimes like this, sometimes you know what I'm saying, right? I can slow down, talk fast like this, and we can be, I just, I've been now.
We've been listening to Bob Ward, so we're fine.
Listen to who?
Bob Ward, he talks fast.
I got to tell Bob that. Like, Bob, you said you talk fast. All right. Bob's a great guy. If you get a chance to see any of his sessions, you haven't seen him, you got to go see Bob. All right, I'm gonna give everybody shout outs now. So Paul Turley right here up front, he's one of my, actually, he's gonna shake his head, but he's actually a mentor of mine. And, Scott too, right? So you got to go see their sessions when you get a chance. And then we have the fixed queries errors, right? So this is actually really cool too. So it takes into account the error message. And so one of the things about the error message stuff too, going back, and do you remember back in SQL Server 2012, 2014-ish, that general error message, like -2 million, blah, 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 where it gave no detail, right? Thankfully, like Fabric doesn't really have that. It gives a lot more detail. So even without Copilot, you can actually look these up and see what's going on versus there's a general error. Figure it out, right? No, it helps you with that. And then too, with our fixed query errors, it will take that into account and it will recommend how to fix it. So we see it leaves notes. Autofix, the multi-part identifier column could not be bound, right? Invalid column address ID. So what you see it did, it took those out, and then it fixed the join condition of both, right? So you're teetering into an area where it may have broken your query, right? He's shaking his head, yes. It may have broken his query. It doesn't know. Once again, you have to verify. But it did a good job of figuring out, hey, okay, so this doesn't work, right? And so we see here, we have select address on address ID equals address ID, right? Or sales LT on address ID equals address ID, right? Over here for everybody too, right? Address ID. And that goes back to the gentleman that mentioned about the zip codes, right? So maybe that didn't work and you got an error. So it's like, hey, you know what? You want the address, but it's on this address ID and equals this address ID, this customer ID on this customer ID, because that works. And now this query should run. Does it give you the results that you expected? I don't know. I don't know. Right? How do you spell that? I-O-know. Huh. Yeah. Like Iona, New York. Right? So limitations. Let me speed up here because I want to respect your time and get you out on time. So Copilot doesn't understand previous inputs and can't undo change or user commits once again, right? So it's not conversational here. Right? We'll get to that in a second because the real-time analytics has conversational. You can keep talking to it. Can't make changes to existing SQL queries. Right? The query's already written. It can't go back and change things like that too. It can fix and explain, but it can't change. It might produce inaccurate results. Right? Once again, I'm going to keep harping down that. Right? You got to remember that. Because I'm telling you, it won't produce bad results for 1,000 times, and you will just be like, oh, this is great. And that's when you fall asleep in your Tesla and bad things happen. Don't want to do that, right? Always want to check and verify, right? The response can include inaccurate or low quality content, so make sure to review the outputs before using them in your work. This is what I was saying before. When it fixes a query, is that query right? I don't know. You got to check, right? It's a helper. It's not a full-blown automation tool that knows everything about it. Because think about this. If Copilot did know everything about everything and could do anything, where would we be needed? Right? So part of me is like, okay, this is Microsoft making sure that we have jobs. Because otherwise, they could sell a lot more ACR and just be like, oh yeah, we can replace your whole IT department, right, with Copilot. Like, wait a minute. is that coming? Is that depressing? That's true. That's true. Scott, that was one of the things they were saying back in SQL Server 2000 that is replacing the DBA, right? And DBA jobs are going to be gone. Yeah, all the auto-tuning stuff. Oh, yeah. Whew. Yeah, the DBA job's going to be obsolete in 10 years. It's funny because they're still COBOL programmers. If there's still COBOL programmers, there will always be DBAs, right? So if you don't know about COBOL, there's a joke about that too. Back in the day, like there were tons of COBOL programmers. Now they only make elevators. That's what they do. I mean, they are elevators are programmed in COBOL. That's their, and they still need elevators. Banking systems too, right? Until we get like the teleporters from like Star Trek, that'd be cool. Yeah. Oh look, you want to validate your output. I haven't said that a couple times, right? But let's jump into Power BI. We got. I'm gonna go through this a little faster because I want to get to the consumption part so you understand how this is built. We can create reports, ask natural language questions. We can write and explain DAX queries. We can create measure descriptions. We can summarize a report, and it can enhance Q&A. Right. So here we have a Power BI report, and one of the things here too. So we say, hey, suggest content for this report. Right. So I'll give you the scenario. You're given a data set, and your boss is like, I need a report on this by tomorrow. You're like, a report on what? This. A report on what? What do you want to see? This. What is this? I don't know. Let's ask Copilot. So we say, suggest content for this report. And it says, OK, here's a suggested outline for your report. So select any page topic to view the details, right? But it suggests these different things. So customer segmentation and loyalty, promotion effectiveness and ROI. Now here it can actually see the data because it's part of Power BI. It's not, so it's all part of that thing. So it can see that and read that. So another thing it can do too is, hey, summarize the visuals on this page, right? Let's say you inherited a Power BI report. You don't know exactly what it's doing. It gives you a summary. Hey, from the visuals count of case by data, it's clear the number of cases handled by the invoice processor significantly exceeded the invoice approver from blah, 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 right? And you say, well, hey, that would be really cool to put into the report itself. There's actually, we'll see in a second if it's in the slide deck, because Copilot created the slide deck. I'm gonna run with that. But it can do that summarization too. There's actually an executive summary part of Copilot that can actually do that. And as your data changes, it gives you those explanations because these explanations can be really, really valid when you're doing executive dashboards, right? So how many times do we do executive dashboards? If somebody's a visualization person, you have to do an executive dashboard for somebody for PowerPoint, and you got to see the data every single time it's run. Then you got to go through and you say, okay, well, sales have grown 3% over. You got to do all that stuff too. Copilot can do that with the summarization, actually Copilot piece. I'm pretty sure it's in here. More suggest content, right? You see all these different things. So all these things are separate actual pages for your report. It does suggest a whole page or your data for that report, so you can create new pages and stuff with it. What was the order quantity for just bikes in France in 2020? So this is another thing too. You can say, ask it a random question about your data, right? And it gives you a card, right? And you can take that card and throw that into your report and stuff as well. Okay, here we go. It's called the narrative. That's what it was. It's the Copilot narrative. The Copilot narrative can summarize the visuals on your page for an executive summary report. So you can have your splash page, your regular page, your detail page, your operational dashboard page, your tactical dashboard page. And you can have an executive summary page. You probably want the executive summary page up front just in terms of order. But it can summarize that for you based off of your data. So as you were shaking your head about having to do all that manually, how much time would this save you? Yeah, he's like, oh my God, yeah. And so this is stuff it's not free. It's built into Power BI with Copilot, right? And we'll talk about cost in just a second here. Another thing too, if you do Q&A, right? And so as you're doing the Q&A type of stuff, some of the stuff too, you have to really remember about naming your schema. Remember I was saying before about if your schema was table A, column 1, 2, 3, 4, it doesn't know what that means, right? But over here too, sometimes you may have something where you have person, and that person could be a patient, that person could also be an employee, that person could also be a lot of other different things, right? But it's in a person table. So I could say, hey, suggest synonyms. And it say, hey, you know what? You should take that label, add logo, and stuff, so it'll give you synonyms to have for that. And you say, okay, those are great. And you add that. Then when somebody says, hey, show me patients that have X, Y, Z, but the table's called person, it knows that synonym is gonna go back to that, and it can read from that table. So it can help you with those types of things too. Some of the limitations, can't perform transformations or explanations across multiple queries and single input, same thing. Doesn't understand that, keep going, right? So some of the same limitations and stuff as well as the other ones. So real-time intelligence, I'm going to breeze through this real quick. This is in preview still. And when I first wrote this didn't even exist. It didn't exist like 4 weeks ago. So you're getting cutting edge stuff, right? So natural language to KQL. KQL is a really cool language for real-time stuff. If you haven't played with it, you should play with it. It's actually really fun, really cool. Dynamic query refinement, right? So you can refine your queries on the fly. Seamless follow-up questions. This is where the conversational piece comes in, right? And that's what I was saying before, and this is in preview. I see this ability being put into the other tools eventually. I don't know when, but because it's here, it's going to eventually be there too, right? So let's look at this real quick. And so we see here, how many storm events happened in 2024? Whoops. Yeah, here we go. How many storm events happened in 2004, I said 2024, right? And so it says insert this query, right? Gives you the editor to put into, it never runs the query for you. It gives you to put it in so you can run it. So then once you do that, you can say, hey, well, wait, how many of those were in California? This is the conversational piece. It knows what you're talking about. So instead of saying how many of what happened, it remembers that you said how many events from 2020, I keep saying 2024, how many events from 2004, right? So it knows that. So it gives you this again. Remember, it remembers your previous question, so it still has the date filter that you had before because it remembers the conversational piece. Some of the limitations, it might suggest potentially inaccurate or misleading data, right? Complex and long user input, directs a database that KQL database can't see, and more than 10,000 concurrent users within an organization can result in failure or a major performance hit, right? So now we can get to consumption. This is what I want to get to before we get you out of here. We got 17 more minutes. So consumption. Who knows how fabric is billed? Anybody know? How is fabric sold? Per hour? Reserves? The CUs, right. The compute units, yes. But there's capacity that are based on those. So we have the lowest one, which is F2, right? You get 2 capacity units, and then it goes all the way up to 260 to 256. Anything over that, they say call for pricing. Right, and there actually are customers that go well over that. And yeah, their Azure bill is ridiculous. Like you see like 8-figure Azure bills, that's crazy, right? But how is it billed, right? And so one of the things too, so first and foremost, to have Copilot functionality, you need at least an F64. An F64 off the top of my head is $8,600 and something a month for pay-as-you-go, and it's like $5,000 a month if you reserve capacity. And so before I used to be, okay, well, how do I help a customer, do that? It's like, well, how many Power BI reports they're going to use? How much space do they need? How much for such and such? So I'm going all these different ways too, and I was like, okay, well, wait, what if they're using Copilot? How does that affect consumption? And so then I went through and started going into the weeds, right? And so Fabric Copilot processes your inputs and outputs using tokens. So this is going back into like just AI in general. So what is a token? A token is a unit of text that consists of one or more characters, such as a word, a punctuation mark, or a white space. So our ubiquitous hello world example has 4 tokens. As we see here, we have hello, 1 token. We have the comma, 1 token, world, 1 token, and the exclamation mark. So there's 4 tokens right there for hello world. So this is literally at the very basics of how a token works. So we take that, and a Fabric Copilot costs 400 capacity units for every 1,000 input tokens and every 1,200 capacity units for every 1,000 output tokens. Everybody got that? You know this is gonna be math, did you? Right? There's even a formula, right? So we see Fabric Copilot consumption units, seconds, is the input token count times 400 plus the output token count times 1,200 over 1,000. Super simple, right? Yeah, see, so, all right, that's literally what I was doing when I saw this. I was like, right? But let's break it down and make it even easier. So let's look at some examples. So we have a Dataflow Gen 2 where we're doing a prompt. Remember our only keep European customers? Remember we did that? That's 3,160 input tokens and 2,100, 2,150, 2,149 output tokens, which equals 3842.8 consumption. These are seconds, consumption unit seconds. And then we see here we have a notebook that's load customers from a data frame, Power BI report. All of these Copilot interactions generate input tokens and output tokens, which equals consumption seconds. So at the very bottom, we see our total. We have 19,904 input tokens, we have 3921 output tokens, which equals a total consumption of 12,666.8. We take that, and then we have our capacity units. So we see with 2 capacity units, we can break it down even further. 1 capacity unit in Fabric, and this doesn't matter if you're using an F2 or 256, 1 capacity unit at the base price for US Central, right? Region prices change, we know that with Fabric, or with Azure in general. There can be different prices based off of region. For Central US, an F2, 1 capacity unit, we see is 36 cents an hour and 21.5 cents per hour for a reservation, right? So that is 18 cents per hour for pay-as-you-go and 10 cents, 11 cents per hour for reservation. That is what Fabric cost. Simple as that. Well, wait, how do I get a capacity unit thing again? Remember, input tokens, output tokens. So think about it like this. A lot of people like to size Fabric based off of the number of Power BI reports you have. It's not based off Power BI reports. It's based off of how they're used. You can open 10 million Power BI reports and never use Fabric consumption. You can ask 10,000 queries in Fabric and Power BI and use all your consumption. So you got to be careful with that. So as you're looking at it for your enterprise, this is really important here. If you're looking at it for your enterprise, remember, how are people going to use Copilot? Not so much how big your reports are going to be, how much data you have. Well, how big is our lakehouse? That's almost irrelevant, right? And it's so funny, Paul. Like we're at a point in time where storage is like cheap. We don't even care about it. There was a point in time where storage was like, oh my God, it's $1 million for, we don't even care anymore. It's like, how much you got? Oh, it's 10 terabytes. That's like $20, right? Nobody cares anymore for the size. Same thing with here. It's not about how much size you need for your data. It's how you're going to interact with Copilot and consumption and stuff as well. So we take that, we go back to our example here. We have 12,666.8 capacity unit seconds, and at 18 cents or 10 or 11 cents per hour reservation, right? This examples that we did today has a pay-as-you-go cost of 63 cents, has a reservation of 38 cents. Now, one of the things that Fabric can do too is what's called smoothing. So if you're going along this level here too, you're using this and stuff too, and then you have 10,000 users using. We have 10,000 users total. You have 2,000 people asking Copilot questions, 2,000 people asking Copilot questions. You look at your Azure bill and your budget stuff too. Everything's fine. It's fine. And then you do something where all 10,000 ask at one time. It's like, oh, well, I will borrow from my consumption tomorrow. That's what smoothing is actually doing. It's borrowing from the future. But you still have a limited runway, right? You still have 256 capacity unit blah, blah, blahs for your thing there. So you got to be careful with sizing it because you don't want to have to burst out of that. And let's say you have a reservation, you have your stuff tightly budgeted, and a lot of companies, their budget is really set, and that can really rock the boat by going over stuff like that. So when you're sizing your Copilot instances and capacity, take that into mind. Don't forget about people using it and stuff as well. So you got to really, really think about how are you going to be using Copilot. And remember what I said before about when you enable it for security groups, and I was making jokes about who you can offer it to. That was not really a joke. That's actually true. So if you have a company the size of, let's say Microsoft, right? Microsoft doesn't allow all 150,000 employees to use Copilot in certain things. Now, some people, yeah, right? And it's funny because it's billing them again too, right? But they still limit who can do what with the data because that cost is not invisible. So same thing with your company, with your enterprise and stuff as well. Whether you have a company of 10 or a company of 10,000 or a company of 100,000, you want to take into account who has the ability to use Copilot. Now, remember, that's not saying they can't use Fabric. It's saying they can't use Copilot. Yes. Yeah, yes.
I'm confused, so I imagine I will have to repeat the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But isn't the idea to build some kind of like that the customer will ask you questions, that I will put Copilot on my Power BI for the business? Like we have capacity 64,
Mm-hmm.
and I just updated my question, which is another story. But so I shouldn't open it for the business to look into the Power BI and ask the question?
Well, so it depends. Like, first off, how big is your business? How many people do you have?
Well, we have, let's say, 300 Power BI users.
Okay, so you can, once again, it's math, right? It's math and everything. So, yeah. Yeah. So you can kind of guess, like well, first off, you say, okay, we have 300 users, And then you say, how versed are your 300 users in your data, number one, right? Because if they're well versed in in your data, they won't ask questions about like explain my data, explain stuff like that, right? So you don't have those questions. They may say, hey, help me with visualizations for such and such, right? So you're picking and choosing about what who these users are and stuff like that too. So without taking too much time, I can talk to you afterwards. We can go further into that. But you're going to pick and choose. You have different types of users. You have your power users, you have your general users, you have your analysts, and they have different query needs. So an analyst who may be doing something, trying to figure out stuff that may eventually want to run machine learning models and stuff like that, regression testing and stuff too, they may need more capacity than an average user who just wants to know how many things that we sell last month, right? And even with that, some of those questions too can be answered ahead of time as well, or they may not even need Copilot to do that, right? So you can use the natural language Q&A that's not Copilot. There's a lot of AI built into that doesn't use Copilot that can help answer some of the basic questions. So like I said, got 8 minutes real quick, so we can talk more about that. I can help you with that as soon as we get done here. Yes?
Will this let you go over, if you have an F-64 and you have a lot of people asking Copilot questions, will Microsoft send you a bigger bill?
Yes, you will get billed. But you can set it so that you don't too. You can set it so, you can hard set it too with the budget, create a budget with your subscription and stuff like that too. So if you have a hard set budget where you don't allow anything go over, then yeah, it'll just stop. But yeah.
So for what you're showing us, you do not need Microsoft 365 Copilot license.
That's a different Copilot, actually. It's part of Fabric. Yeah, and you have to have the F64 to be able to do this. Because if you have less than it, you just have Fabric with no Copilot. So yeah, yes.
The 18 cents and 10 cents
Mm-hmm.
conversions, did that include an F-64 price?
No, so F64 is just the number of capacity units you have available. That's at the very, very basic, 18 cents per capacity unit, right? So to use Copilot, you need 64 capacity units to be able to run Copilot, right? You don't have to burn all those, but so think about before Fabric, when Power BI was sold as Power BI Premium, and you needed a P1, right? You need the P1 SKU to get the premium features. That's how they are able to charge you to get those premium features. That's what they're doing there, right? So it's still the same base capacity price, but you need to have this many units to be able to have the premium features. Yep. I see yours too. I think his hand was up first.
The question is so important. I'm wondering if you hit your capacity limits,
Mm-hmm.
right, you could have this one workload, the OpenAI workload, then impacting your available capacity units for all your other workloads.
You very well could, yes.
Now, if you elected to, and my one question is, what's the default? Is the default to just throttle and stop giving feedback when you hit capacity, or is the default to have like this marginal out-of-bundle marginal cost on your pay-as-you-go, for example?
Yeah, so the answer to that, and as a consulting answer, it depends, right? And that's so funny because it's like always pertinent, it depends, right? But it depends on how you have your capacity set up in your subscription, right? Does your subscription let you go over? Does your subscription stop, right? So based off of that. But those are great questions, and I want to get through just a couple more slides. We can talk about that, the licensing and stuff. All of us, we can have a little powwow as soon as we get done, because I want to get through this for everybody else. Great questions, though. We're at the Q&A slide. That literally was, right? So yes?
Was that the pricing for Fabric or?
Yeah, so this 18 cents and 10.7, I'm going to say 11 cents. That's going to drive me crazy. This 18 cents and 11 cents for reserve is the cost of Fabric in Central U.S. per capacity unit, per hour. So remember, so the basis of this, it's one capacity unit. So it's the Central U.S. region. One capacity unit is 18 cents per hour, per capacity unit hour in pay-as-you-go, and it's 11 cents per capacity unit hour for reserved. To be able to use Copilot in Fabric, you need 64 capacity units. Still the same price. You just need 64 of them, right? Which is where it gets to $8,600 and then $5,000 a month, something like that, right? For the thing. Yes. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You set up security groups that, so remember at the very beginning, the slide that showed when you turn it on and it says for entire organization or selected groups. So you can pick security groups that have access to Copilot and those who don't. And that's a great way to control who can, so you don't have people just burning up your stuff like that. So, yes. Oh, wait, right. Okay.
What else burns up your money or besides Copilot? Because you said you could have a bunch of powerful reports in Fabric. And I mean,
So,
does opening one use up the money, or you have to like make pipelines?
so yeah, other things do burn it and stuff too, and that's a whole nother topic. But I'll just give you. So answer yes, and then obviously there's Spark stuff, Spark clusters and things like that. That all takes a part of that too. So this is just that's actually a great question when you think about it, right? So if you're running Fabric in your environment, the cost is not just Copilot. I wanted to show you the cost of Copilot because this is where people miss their costs. They'll size it out. Why? Okay, we're going to need an extra large Spark cluster. We're going to need 3 of those. We're going to need blah blah blah. And there's actually a partner notebook that has these very detailed calculations in it. And you're like, wait a minute, what about Copilot? And Copilot is the one that will bite you because you don't think about asking it questions, and that's the one that can bite you in the cost. That's why I wanted to put that slide, that section in there for you. Yes.
So for me, that's why I'm so concerned about the software as a service.
Mm-hmm.
To have all of these different types of compute, depending on one capacity,
Mm-hmm.
is scary. Yes, I mean, I've seen suggestions that you would provision multiple capacities for different things, like have a capacity that you switch on and off for your data engineering or whatever. But there's certain things that always need to be on, like your capacity that services your Power BI consumption must always be on. But to have now open AI being able to limit the capacity units that are available for your Power BI consumption is scary.
Yeah.
Surely
Yeah.
Microsoft must enable some metering or some
So
platform as a
just
service.
to add complexity to that, he mentioned the open AI stuff. That's a whole nother way to burn capacity in Fabric too. That's not Copilot. That's why I didn't talk about it. But remember that first slide I showed that had all of the stuff like that too? There's a lot of other AI stuff that can burn capacity too, right? So it can get. I should do a talk just on actually Fabric building, right? Yeah. So
Just in response to your concern, without violating any NDAs, we can say that the product teams are very actively working on that.
yes. Thank you. Yeah, because I didn't even want to go. I was like, I don't know. I don't. So no. So you were asking. I'm like, I don't know how to explain this without.
The only area where that is there is with your Spark, where you can provision a separate Spark cluster, and that comes with additional cost, right? So potentially that could be available in other workloads. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
But then we're going back to Azure Synapse Analytics. It's not software as a service anymore.
Yeah. But so the great thing about Fabric is that it changes daily, like literally. No, like seriously, you're laughing. It literally changes daily. Remember I told you these slides were different like just 2-3 weeks ago because stuff has changed in just that point in time. So a lot of your concerns and stuff too, I'm absolutely going to take it back to some of the private stuff that's NDA that I can't talk about, but they ask for feedback, and Paul's actually in some of those too. So these are things that we actively bring up and talk about. And some things the product teams are like, is that beneficial? And we're like, yeah. And they're like, oh, we think about that.
And are actively working.
Yeah.
And well down the road.
Yes.
It's not just that, it's broken.
Yeah, but they're very aware of stuff too, and we're very active in taking your comments and feedback to them. So it's a process. It's going to take a little time to get. Remember, it's still Fabric Copilot was just introduced last October, so it's only a year old, right? And we're already gotten this far into it, so we're getting there, right? But I still want you to be able to take it and start beginning to learn to play with it because it's going to become pertinent in your data enterprise. Yeah. So yeah.
So the settings, is that at the capacity level or the tenant?
Oh, so they're tenant settings. So that's a great question. So the bit is to show who you can give access to. So you go up to the cog in the right. I'm gonna do it in my head. You go up to the cog in the right. You hit the cog, and you go down to the side, and it says governance and something else. And then there's an admin portal. You click on the admin portal, and you have tenant settings, and you have these different things. And you go over to Fabric capacity, and you go down, and then there's your Copilot. Yeah. So I had to draw that out in my head. I was going through. But yes, it's tenant based, not capacity based. The capacity settings are in Azure Fabric, the Azure portal. The tenant settings are actually in Fabric. Yeah.
So with that, if let's say you've got an F64 capacity that you're operating certain modules or workspaces, but you've also got an F2, is the Copilot initialization for that single 64 capacity and not available?
It won't work in it too. Yeah, and that's something that like they should work on, shouldn't they? Right. So read between the lines, because it's something. It just makes sense, right? If you have two 32s, right, you're paying the price of a 64. Why don't I have, right? So things are being worked on. That's it. So with that being said, we are at time, and I want to thank you. And feedback's important, so take a picture of that and send feedback. Once again, I am Jonathan Stewart. I go by Locks. Why did I put an exclamation mark instead of at? Right, who did that, right? Who's supposed to get? I'm supposed to give you the Amazon gift card, right? I still got you, right? And I'll give a $5 gift card if you can guess why I'm called Locks. Okay, nobody answered. Nobody gets that. I'll keep that. No, but no, and so I'm on LinkedIn, Locks, and I work for Spyglass. You can reach me email at jstewart@spyglass.com. And one more thing too with it, if you want to talk more about, we're going to talk about the licensing and stuff as well. If you want to see like Fabric in like a Fabric PLC and stuff like that too, come talk to me. Microsoft is doing a lot of proof of concepts, and they're actually paying for a lot of these proof of concepts for enterprises. So you may get a Microsoft sponsored Fabric PLC. Come talk to me. Like I said, I love doing these PLCs. I love doing demonstrations. I actually like talking. Ask my middle school teacher. They will tell you I love to talk, right? But with that being said, thank you for your time, and have a great rest of your day. And I'll be here if you have more questions, and we can still talk about it. Yep. Thank you.